Remember the sound of a handbell ringing across the playground? Not an electric buzzer, not a digital tone, just the sharp, metallic clatter of a brass bell being shaken by the head teacher standing at the top of the steps. The moment that bell rang, everything stopped. Mid-game, mid-sentence, mid-laugh. You'd freeze wherever you were, and then without a word, everyone would line up in perfect rows, silent as snow falling on concrete. That was every morning, every single morning. The air smelled of damp wool and old radiators. Your satchel felt heavy on your shoulder, and you could see your breath in the winter air. You'd stand there, waiting, while the teachers walked slowly down the lines, checking ties, inspecting shoes, and you didn't question it, because that's just what you did. That world, the world of brass bells and standing in lines, of milk monitors and inkwells, it's gone now. Not just changed, gone. 1970s school day in Britain was a different animal altogether. The routines, the rituals, the tiny daily moments that shaped an entire generation, they vanished so completely that if you described them to a child today, they'd think you were making it up. But we're not making it up, we lived it. Today, we're going to walk back through those school gates one more time. We're going to remember 12 things that British kids did every single school day in the 1970s, things that were so normal, so ordinary, that we never thought they'd disappear. So take a breath. Loosen your tie, and let's step back into that classroom one more time. Number 1. Drinking your third pint of milk. Every morning, around 10 o'clock, in came the milk crates. Small glass bottles with a foil cap. If it was winter, that milk was ice cold, sometimes half frozen, with cream pushing up through the foil like a tiny mushroom. If it were summer, it would be warm, disgustingly warm, because those crates had been sitting outside in the sun since dawn. But you drank it anyway. Everyone did. The milk monitor would hand them out with paper straws that went soggy halfway through. You'd punch the straw through the foil, and if you were lucky, it wouldn't bend. If you were unlucky, you'd be jabbing at that cap for 30 seconds while everyone watched. Being the milk monitor was a genuine responsibility. You'd arrive early, collect the crates from outside the main door, and carry them carefully so the bottles didn't clink and break. You'd count them, make sure there were enough, and check for any that had leaked or cracked. It made you feel important, trusted, like you had a job that actually mattered. Some kids loved their milk, others hated it with a passion but had to drink it anyway because the teacher watched. You'd see them holding their nose, gulping it down as fast as possible, trying not to taste it. There was always one kid who'd pretend to drink it, then pour it into the plant pot when no one was looking. It was part of a government scheme, of course. Free milk for all primary school children, introduced after the war to make sure British kids grew up strong and healthy. Margaret Thatcher ended it in 1971, earning herself the nickname Thatcher the Milk Snatcher, but many schools kept it going locally for years after. That daily milk ritual was more than nutrition. It was a pause, a moment of calm in the morning, a tiny piece of communal routine that tied every child in Britain together, whether you were in a village school in Devon or a tower block in Glasgow. Now we send kids to school with labeled water bottles in insulated carriers. Maybe that's better, maybe it's safer, but that shared moment is gone. That collective memory, that taste of warm, slightly sour milk that every British adult over 50 can still summon instantly. Number 2. Standing for assembly every morning. Before lessons began, there was assembly. The whole school gathered in the hall, standing in rows. No chairs for the children. You stood, silently, for 20 minutes, sometimes longer. The head teacher would stand at the front, elevated on a small stage, flanked by the deputy head, and maybe a teacher at the piano. You'd sing a hymn, Morning Has Broken, all things bright and beautiful. Then prayers. The Lord's Prayer, always, recited in unison, every word memorized, before you even understood what it meant. It didn't matter if your family was religious or not. Everyone said the same words. Everyone sang the same hymns. It was just what school was. The hall would smell of floor polish and PE mats stacked against the wall. Your legs would ache from standing still for so long. You'd watch dust motes floating in the shafts of light coming through the high windows. If you were unlucky enough to be at the front, you had to stand perfectly straight because the head teacher was looking right at you. Then would come the notices. Who'd won house points? Whose dinner money was outstanding? A stern warning about running in the corridors or leaving the toilets in a state. Sometimes a visiting vicar or a local police officer would come in to talk about stranger danger or road safety. Birthday announcements were the highlight. Your name would be read out, and everyone would sing Happy Birthday while you stood there, embarrassed but secretly pleased. It was your moment. Your day acknowledged in front of the entire school. And then, finally, dismissed by class. Year 3, you may go. You'd file out in silence, back to your classroom, back to your desk with the ink stain and the carved initials. Today, assemblies are more inclusive, carefully balanced to respect every faith and no faith. That's progress. But Something's been lost. That sense of collective identity, we all stood together, we all sang the same songs, and for better or worse, it made us feel like we belonged to something bigger than ourselves. Number 3. Writing with fountain pens and inkwells. There was a moment, usually around year 3 or 4, when you graduated from pencil to ink. It was a rite of passage, a sign that you were trusted with something permanent, something that couldn't be erased. Some classrooms still had the old Victorian desks with ceramic inkwells built into the wood. Most had been filled in or covered over, but in some schools, especially the older ones, they were still there, still functional. You dip your fountain pen into the ink, careful not to take too much, and then write, slowly, deliberately, forming each letter with precision. Your fingers would be stained blue by lunchtime. There'd be blots on your page, smudges on your cuff, and if you pressed too hard, the nib would scratch and splatter, ruining a whole line of perfect copperplate. But that was the point. Writing with ink taught you patience. It taught you care. It taught you that words mattered, that they had weight and permanence. Learning to use a fountain pen properly was a skill in itself. You had to hold it at the right angle, apply just the right amount of pressure. Too light, and nothing came out. Too heavy, and the nib would dig into the paper, leaving torn holes and frustrated tears. Some kids had expensive Parker pens handed down from older siblings. Others had cheap plastic ones from Woolworths that leaked in your shirt pocket and ruined your uniform. There was a whole ritual around filling the pen too. You'd unscrew the barrel, insert the cartridge with a satisfying click, or if you had a really old-fashioned one, use the little lever mechanism to suck ink from a bottle. The smell of that ink, sharp, chemical, oddly comforting, is something you never forget. And handwriting mattered back then. Really mattered. You'd spend entire lessons practicing loops and curves, copying out sentences in your best script. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Over and over. Teachers would mark you down for untidy writing, even if your spelling and grammar were perfect. Now, kids type everything. They swipe and tap and autocorrect. They've never had ink-stained fingers or blotted homework. And maybe that's fine, but something's been lost. Something about the physical act of writing being connected to the importance of what you're saying. Number 4. Playing British Bulldog at break time. Break time in the 70s was a savage affair, and nothing captured that freedom better than British Bulldog. One person stood in the middle of the playground. Everyone else lined up at one end. When they shouted, "British Bulldog," everyone had to run to the other side, while the person in the middle tried to tackle you. If they succeeded, you joined them in the middle. It was brutal. Knees got scraped, glasses got broken, and yet everyone wanted to play. Then it got banned. Too dangerous, too many injuries, and maybe that was sensible, but something was lost when British Bulldog disappeared. It wasn't just a game, it was where you learned resilience, where you learned that getting knocked down wasn't the end of the world. It was rough and messy and sometimes unfair, but it was real. Now, playgrounds are safer, better supervised, but there's no British Bulldog anymore. No scraped knees, no wild runs across the concrete. Number 5. Getting the cane or the slipper. Corporal punishment was real, and it was painful, but it was also a fact of school life in the 70s. The cane was reserved for serious offenses. You'd hold out your hand, palm up, and the head teacher would strike it with a thin bamboo cane. It stung like fire. More common was the slipper, a plimsoll applied to the backside. The humiliation was worse than the pain, and the strangest thing, parents mostly supported it. It ended, banned in state schools in 1986, and good riddance, many would say, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Discipline was clearer then. Boundaries were harder. You knew where the line was. Now, teachers have almost no power to enforce discipline, and they're exhausted trying to manage classrooms where authority itself has become negotiable. Number 6. Walking home alone. From about age 7, most British kids in the 70s walked to and from school alone, or with friends, but without adults. No one drove you. No one met you at the gate. You just went, maybe stopped at the corner shop for penny sweets, and arrived home an hour after school ended. You'd let yourself in with the key on a string around your neck. It wasn't neglect. It was normal. Now you can barely let your child walk to the end of the street without someone calling social services. Is the world more dangerous now? Statistically, no, but fear is higher. And so we've traded independence for safety, and our children have lost the chance to navigate the world on their own, to feel capable and trusted and free. Number 7. School dinners from dinner ladies who knew your name. You'd queue up in the dinner hall and shuffle past the hot counters where the dinner ladies stood. These weren't catering staff. They were middle-aged women who'd worked at the school for 20 years and knew every child by name. They'd slop mashed potato onto your plate and give you a stern look if you tried to refuse the cabbage. You'll eat what you're given. Everyone ate together. Teachers and children, same hall, same food. No packed lunch table, no separate meals. Now, school dinners are outsourced to contractors. The dinner ladies are gone, replaced by agency staff on minimum wage, and half the children bring packed lunches anyway. We've gained choice, but we've lost those dinner ladies who'd give you an extra Yorkshire pudding if you looked sad. We've lost the shared experience of eating together. Number 8. Right. Watching educational TV on the big trolley. The thrill of seeing the TV trolley being wheeled into the classroom meant you weren't doing normal lessons today. BBC Schools programming was brilliant. Look and read. Words and pictures. Programs specifically made for schools, watched by thousands of children across the country simultaneously. The teacher would draw the curtains, the class would fall silent, and for 20 minutes, you'd be transported. Now, every child has instant access to unlimited video content, and that's wonderful, but it's not communal. You don't all watch the same thing at the same time and then talk about it together. Number 9. PE in the freezing cold, wearing nothing but shorts. Physical education in the 70s was not gentle. White vest, navy shorts, black plimsolls. That was it. No tracksuit bottoms, not even in January when you were doing cross-country and it was 2 degrees outside. You just ran, your legs turning purple with cold, your lungs burning, and if you complained, the PE teacher would tell you to stop being soft and run faster to warm up. It toughened you up. You learned that being cold wasn't fatal, that you could do things you thought you couldn't if someone simply refused to let you give up. Now, PE is gentler, more inclusive, and that's good, but something's been lost. That expectation that you'll push through discomfort. Number 10. Times tables. Until you got it right. You learned your times tables by rote, over and over until you could recite them in your sleep. Mental arithmetic was done in your head or on paper, no calculators, and you'd do pages of it, hundreds of problems, until the patterns became automatic. It wasn't creative, it wasn't fun, but it gave you a foundation so solid that you'd never struggle with basic calculation again. Now, the approach is more conceptual, more focused on understanding why. That's valuable, but that automaticity is lost. That confidence with numbers. Number 11. Collecting dinner money in a brown envelope. Every Monday morning, your mum would give you a brown envelope with money inside enough to cover the week's school dinners. You'd hand it to your teacher during registration. Just cash in envelopes, trusted to 7-year-olds to deliver safely. Now, everything's automated. Direct debits and online payments. Efficient, trackable, safe. But just another way we've removed small challenges from childhood. Number 12. Having one teacher for everything. In primary school, you had one teacher. They taught you everything. They knew your handwriting, your reading level, your weaknesses and strengths. They knew you. That relationship mattered. You didn't just learn from them. You learned to respect them, to trust them. Now, even in primary schools, there are specialist teachers. And in secondary school, you move between 6 or 7 teachers a day. No one knows you fully. We've gained expertise, but we've lost that deep, sustained relationship that used to be the foundation of education. 12 ordinary, unremarkable parts of daily life that seemed permanent and turned out to be temporary. Individually, most of these changes make sense, but taken together, something bigger has shifted. 1970s in school day was harder, colder, less forgiving, but it was also more independent, more communal, more trusting. It assumed children were capable of more than we assume now. Today's children are safer and more comfortable, but they're also more supervised, more protected, more shielded from challenge and risk. Because childhood isn't just about being comfortable, it's about learning who you are, building resilience and independence, and the quiet confidence that comes from navigating the world on your own terms. So, what do you remember? Share your memories below, because these stories matter. Not because the past was better, it wasn't, but because remembering what we've lost helps us think about what we want to keep.